technique, we're actually going to insert piping in between two pieces of fabric. While it is similar to creating custom piping, there are a few differences. The setup is exactly the same. We're still on that 3-thread wide stitch as far as having that left needle, the upper looper, the lower looper. And again, I always like that longer stitch length between 3.5 and 4. The first thing that I'm going to do is, I've got that bias strip cut, and this is about 1.5 inches wide. I'm still using that 1/8 inch cable cording, and I use that fabric glue just to hold those two pieces of fabric together. So when I'm placing my cording underneath the presser foot, I have a little bit of security so I'm not fumbling around. I still have that cording foot on, and again, that little tick right there indicates where my cording actually sits in the guide. The first thing I'm going to do in this technique is I'm actually going to set my cording up so that I can get that attached and it is in place, and then I'll add my two pieces of fabric. So I'm going to place that underneath the presser foot, making sure that that cording sits out the back side. Oops, and I can see, if you look real close, I didn't have that cording in the guide, so it wasn't moving for me. Now I have the cording in the proper place, and we'll stitch, and I'm just going to help guide it along just a little bit, and I'm going to get probably about 1 inch of fabric past my presser foot. So in this technique, this is the first thing you're going to want to do, and I would strongly suggest that when you do this, that you cut a little extra of your fabric for the piping. Now I'm placing my second layer of fabric in position underneath that cording, and I'm taking it right up to that cutting blade, and I'm just going to take a couple of stitches to get it caught. Now everything's caught. So I've got everything set up here. I always try to make sure, again, this piping or cording is wrapped in that fabric strip. Now I'm going to place my top layer on, and I do a little prep work on that. And the first prep work I do is I cut out what I call a little L. And what this little L does is it helps me slide this piece of fabric up past the blades to the needles so that my two fabric edges are a little closer together. I'm going to raise that presser foot, and you can see what I'm doing is I'm sliding this underneath that presser foot right up to where that other piece of fabric is. And see how beautifully that works? It's right next to or the left of that blade. So everything is set. Now, it does take two hands in this operation, and how I do this is my right hand hangs on to my bottom layer and my cording, and my top hand hangs on to my top layer. And I do every so often do the whole wrap the cording and make sure everything is nice and snug. Hold those fabric edges together. One hand hangs onto two layers, one hand hangs onto one layer, and I just continue to stitch down my entire piece of fabric. This does take some time, but once you see the results, you'll see that the technique is well worth it. As I come to the end, again, I'm going to make sure that I'm wrapped nice and tight. And now that I'm at the end of my cording, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to clip all of this out of the way. I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to stitch to the end of my fabric. And I clip my thread tails. And now for the big reveal. You can see the beautiful 3-thread stitch on the denim fabric. We're going to open it up, and how stunning is that? Our piping was inserted into the two pieces of fabric, and the beauty of this is I don't have all the bulk in my stitching in that seam, so this is going to be a nice flat seam. This is ideal for the back of a jacket. You can use it in a tote. I've actually used it in pillows, rows and rows of inserting piping in between rows and rows of fabric. The stunning detail created on the Baby Lock Vibrant using that optional cording foot.